I'm sorry that I didn't get a hold of you when I first got into Colorado, but I was fucking stupid busy those couple of days anyway. It was gonna be last weekend and all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad I got a hold of you while you were packing up and rolling out. Oh, hey, there it is. Go live. Part of the country are you in? So how long before they start mandating papers? Whoa. Wow. Why?
Well, you heard.
Where'd that come from?
Well, you heard today that, I don't know.
Go ahead. You heard today that what?
Biden just said that any business has over 100 employees, they're going to try to make everybody mandate that everyone there get the vax. Just today, he announced that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a radical step, and he just did it today. That's enough to make people push back hard.
I mean, Here's hoping. Here's hoping.
That's 100 million Americans that would affect. 100 million. That's a third of the country. Maybe, I mean, lose your job. That's the only other option, right?
Well, and they already killed all the small businesses, so the companies that were like 20 or less are basically gone anyway.
Yeah, they think that we lost 40% of small businesses in that lockdown.
And then they tried to take out the remaining 60% of small businesses when they said no more porn on OnlyFans.
Right. And of course, you know, although the minimum wage has been too low for a long time, they want to suddenly throw it up to 15, which would put a lot of small businesses under because that's just not gradual enough for them. You know.
Well, I mean, they're trying to phase it in like that, you know, an inch at a time, a dollar at a time. In California.
Well, it was 750. Now they're talking double.
All right, we're like ready to go in, Steve.
Okay. Oh shit. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's do that.
Live.
Hey everyone, welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Boykinen. I am here on the side of the road in Humboldt County in a fucking wind tunnel, apparently Jeebus. Normally the backdrop isn't my truck. I'm really stoked to bring in this guest, but before I do that, let me run through the business real quick. The show has a sponsor. It's pretty cool. Sometimes they send me stuff. Matrix bars. Matrix bars are mushroom chocolate bars. There's 3.5 grams in each bar, and I'm not kidding. I'm not. I ate 3 pieces before I left here. It works. It does. I promise. You can figure it out for yourself by scanning the QR code or by hitting them up on Twitter or IG, Matrix Genetics, MatrixGenetics. Go run down the rabbit hole. I recommend it. One of our friends there showed up and she was like, I don't know, dude, I'm a fucking lightweight, so I just took a square and I got wrecked because people don't realize that there's actual psilocybin in each piece. I asked the company, they said like predominantly the strain in them is penis envy. There's some golden teacher, some other I can't remember, I'll look it up during the show what the other strain is. That kind of get mixed in as well from time to time, but yeah, dude, they know what they're doing. And here's the thing, I don't like strawberries and cream. Rook, do you like strawberries and cream as a flavor?
Not together, no.
It's common. No, gross, right? This mushroom chocolate bar somehow managed to make strawberries and cream not taste like shit, and there's not an overwhelming taste of fucking fungus. Like, it's weird, it's creepy. Like, how fucking not terrible this was. Like, it should be. You're ready for it. Even strawberries and cream, not shitty. Matrix Genetics. Try it out, man. I am stoked to welcome back to the show my old buddy, a former co-worker, and holy shit, dude, I'd go back with this guy, Rook Macpherson. How you doing, man? Good to
I made it through the pandemic, and now I'm just hoping we can just keep going further.
right as they're locking everything back down and making everybody show their papers. And dude, I had to go to 5 different restaurants in San Francisco last week. I think it was last week. Feels like a month ago. But
they wouldn't thank you if you didn't have a vaccine. Was that it?
You couldn't. So here was the thing. You could have theoretically eaten outside if they had tables up. you could have eaten outside, but you couldn't eat inside, and you couldn't use the bathroom without showing proof of vaccination.
Wow.
Yeah. So all volunteer. This isn't, any kind of law yet. This is the restaurants getting ahead of the curve in at least San Francisco. I would be willing to bet it's a number of other major cities, though.
Well, there's another way to look at that. It could be that the government may be afraid to do the mandate themselves and instead encourage business, which big businesses seems to be playing along with this COVID conspiracy, to force us into these corners and make us get the vax.
Yeah, I agree. What is it when there's a marriage of corporations and government?
That's fascism.
Fascism. That's right. And now it's being done by puffed up techno. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that Mussolini coined that phrase, and it was him that that's exactly what he was doing. He was using the government hand in hand with the corporations to oppress.
I wanted, there's somebody in the chat, Anthony, who goes back a couple of years as a supporter of the show, who's fucking probably going to lose his job because of these mandates. And there's a number of other people that are like that. There's a number of nurses. 60% of nurses aren't taking this thing. And people are at hospitals, at least hospital administrators would rather fire their nurses and then be like, I don't know why we're understaffed. The highest...
Well, we already have a nursing shortage that is desperate in this country.
Yeah. But, I mean, look, if this is truly... This is funny. If the U.S. was even pretending to be anything like a free market, aspirational republic, the fact we would already have, I guess pro-choice hospitals, pro-choice airlines, pro-choice restaurants. We don't have those. We don't. Not as like a regular thing. We've got people jumping the mandate to say we're gonna need to see your papers before you come in, because that's coming. And as we were talking about before we went live officially, Biden announced today, 100 million people on the line for papers or no?
Said that any company with 100 or more employees will be required to mandate the vax. I'm sure there'll be some infighting about that, but that's what he announced today.
Okay, so I realize how far gone these companies are now and how much a part of the government these companies are now, but Sleepy Josh will attest to this. In 2012, in response to the SOPA and PIPA legislation, there was a day without the internet, and even tech giants in protest shut down for a day, and it just ground it to a halt, and Congress changed their mind. I don't believe that could happen necessarily today. Go ahead, Josh. Or not. I thought I heard Sleepy there for a second. Well, we could do it. I've not shaved Oz whistles. I got a haircut and my beard got trimmed.
Never your mojo.
I shaved. That's funny. No, man. No. Jump in, Rook. I'm rambling.
No, what I'm getting at is basically they basically put together a very grand scheme, and the only reason it works is because the people that are doing this, the very globalists that are doing us to us with this COVID conspiracy are the people that own the media. They own the outlet by which the information comes to us, but they're not being truthful. And what I find shocking and surprising these days is 20 years ago, no liberal believed the media. And I hate to pick on the liberals, but unfortunately the COVID conspiracy survives with their attitude right now. It's the people on the right that, and I'm a centrist, so don't get me wrong, but it's the people on the right that I consider to have the proper spirit about this as far as forcing vaccinations on people. And they're not watching the liberal media and not being sold this horse and pony show. They don't believe in it, and that's part of the reason why they're going after Fauci, because they have the goods on Fauci. That's all happening currently, right now, with Rand Paul. I don't know if you've heard about any of that.
I don't know if I would consider you a centrist, Rook. I would maybe if you want to be like, I think both the right and left are, absolutely just, out loud on purpose stupid. Then we could put you in the independent column. But between the center of where the right and left are right now is how fast are we bombing the entire planet? Who gets to suffer first? How can we means test this instead of solve it? Maybe we could ambiguously throw money at a problem and it'll go away. That's the political center, like in terms of action.
Sure.
So I mean,
when I say centrist, at least as far as my outlook, I guess I'm referring to center and above, because I do a lot of Illuminati research and I see things from their perspective. Doesn't mean I agree with what they're doing, but I see why they're doing what they're doing. And the political divide they create is to make these things possible, because it's within that division point that they can do their best work. When we're divided, we are conquered by them. And I think one of the things, big picture, is that they've seen that we are poisoning the earth. Now, they may be exaggerating some of it to gain control of industry through climate legislation, but that's another discussion for another day. I do believe they think that the earth is threatened by our sheer numbers. There are too many of us. There is no doubt. But who gets to say how many there will be and how we shall lessen that number? I don't agree with that at all, that they should get to decide. And I believe that they still want to take out about 80 to 90% of us. And I think COVID is part of that scheme.
So there is nobody here on the program, or really in the chat, I don't think, that would question whether or not what we're living through in this moment isn't being, at least on I guess an operational level, being determined by eugenicist fucking sociopaths. It's in their own words. It's in the societies they belong
to.
Said
it. Yes, they said it repeatedly. Bill Gates.
Well, yeah, and it's not just Bill Gates. I mean, it's the people who founded Oxford AstraZeneca. It's the people, the whole board of Moderna. It's the entire board of Johnson & Johnson. It's not like we belong to eugenicist societies is a big secret amongst all of these people. It's not. They all talk about, you and I as if we're cattle and, a calling. Dude, my God, do you know anybody who fucking, eavesdropped on Clubhouse for, the couple of months that it was a thing?
What's Clubhouse now?
It was like an iPhone-only app, and a lot of it was basically tech billionaires stroking themselves and then casually talking about their eugenicist plan and how you and I are basically fucking simultaneously animals and data points. But at no point...
Yeah, they always believe that. And it's usually the bloodline people that believe that. Most of the people that are truly powerful in this world, you'll find that their bloodlines go all the way back to the first kings and queens on the planet. This has been a very, you've all heard this stuff before. This is a very old agenda, but now I think the crisis point may be reached with the number of people on the planet, that threatens them too. And so if they all come to agreement to reduce their slave populations by a certain amount, and without somebody gaining too much advantage over the other, because they're constantly fighting each other, by the way, people don't realize that. The Illuminati fight each other more than they keep us down. But if they can agree upon a safe level and the way to do it, well, this COVID thing might be the way to get it done. You know, you mentioned all these guys at all these drug companies, and what you sprang to my mind was there's a former Pfizer vice president by the name of Michael Yeadon.
Mike Yeadon, yeah.
Yeadon. And he's a pro-vax guy for the most part. You know, 32 years of pharma development, but he understands that the gene-based shot, it's a TNA genetic code and also a messenger RNA. And he pointed out, and he said publicly, it's got a lipid nanoparticle in it that creates spike proteins, and of course that's really bad, especially for reproductive purposes for women. But it's encoded to actually make us shed the virus. It's basically what they're doing with this shot. And this is a former, you know, it's not totally hopeless. Some of the people in those companies are talking about it, but big tech is blocking it. But this guy said that literally what they're doing with this virus, and he knows, is to make it make a copy of itself so that the person getting the vax is shedding. The people with the vax are shedding far more than anybody who just has a disease for 3 or 5 days, because it's just like the flu, probably engineered from the flu. But the vax is actually making people make more of the virus so they can shed it. And they said that in Germany, they believe up to 60% of the cases recently that they've been coming with the Delta variant are people that have already had the vaccination. And that's
it's higher in Israel. It's higher in Iceland. It's, yes. Where people are reporting this thing, you know, honestly, or they don't have the weird requirement that we do here in the US, where you're not counted as fully vaccinated until it's your like 15th business day after your second shot. You know, where they don't have that, their numbers change dramatically.
America's going to have tougher lockdowns and tougher requirements eventually, if they can get them passed, because America is the problem towards global communism. I'm going to just say it, because I do believe that or fascism, if you want to call it that, is totalitarianism either way, but they want a global society. And that means that a lot of the freedoms that we're used to in the United States are going to be swept aside. So America has to go down first, because it's the one that usually stands in the way of such takeovers, like we did with the Nazis and the Prussian Empire. America is in the way of that kind of global dominance, and that's why it's targeted more.
I don't know about that. Well, the way that here's what I'd put to you. Not that it's necessarily that, but that we're a victim of our own propaganda, so much so that when we invade, quote unquote, the Capitol, we stay between the velvet rope. You know? And so
just like England did. Yes. But even though Americans' intentions aren't totally pure in every regard, for certain, I would still consider the efforts of World War II to be valuable against the Nazis, and probably against the Prussians too. Why is it always Germany? But just because, you know, they were certainly, they would love what's happening in this country right now. In fact, I don't know, it's not the Fourth Reich trying to get a global.
I was going to say they are what's happening now. Do you think Operation Paperclip was just so we could start NASA? No. Like, we didn't just get Werner von Braun. We got a whole bunch of Nazis that we'd been funding the entire time anyway. Or at least, do you remember? You've got to remember, you probably yelled at me for it, but I would tell people as we were just merrily strolling by them with the cab, like, you know, Walt Disney funded the Nazis cab rides, you know, like, just keep calmly let people know that, that Henry Ford gave billions of dollars, or terms of
Yes,
money
Henry
then.
Ford was pro-Hitler, and I believe there's evidence for Walt Disney. And I believe both of them were Masons. In fact, I know they both were, but Walt Disney was a 33rd degree Mason. And
There's a, like, real
obviously,
quick, I'm gonna cut you off for a second
yeah,
because
he was
there's a
definitely on the right.
hilarious moment I think it's Family Guy, where they wake up Walt Disney, they unfreeze him, and Disney just looks at the person
Sure.
and he's like, "Are there still Jews?" And they're like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Put me back," and they fucking refreeze him and they stick him back in the thing, and that's the bit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how
And
much
a lot of
everybody
that
knows
was
Disney was Nazi.
they were against the banking empires, and a lot of the banking empires did come out of Old Jerusalem, but that was because the Knights Templar started their whole business there.
I mean, look,
I'm not.
it's all
I'm
about
certainly not an
location, right?
anti-Semite anyway. But they pick up on these things and they turn it into hate, and they decide to hate a group of people or something to get it corrected, and that's not the problem. The problem is the people making you hate someone else. They're the ones who are actually doing it, and people don't realize how high the pyramid goes, and that eventually it has to come to one person. I'm of a very firm belief that one person who will never know the name or face of is controlling the entire world, because if the base of the pyramid is everyone else and it comes to a point, that implies that mathematically. It's basically proving it. One controls two, two control four, four control the eight, and downward towards the bottom.
I mean, I understand how the math works. I don't know if you actually get to say it's one person, although that's a fascinating concept. I would love to know what the audience
Well, we
thinks
never,
about that too.
right.
Um,
Well, we never get to see that. The most powerful people we know of is the Rothschilds, and they're probably just only 3/4 of the way up. In
yeah,
fact, I would tell you that the most powerful people on this planet have no money, because money is just a coupon for the slave to trade for food. I guarantee you they don't have any money at the top. They don't need that.
well, no, no. I mean, honestly, at this point, land and data, those are the two things,
Yep.
or the I guess the deed to the lanes of commerce. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that.
and that can stretch into the metaphorical if you want it to. I'm sure it stretches into the symbolic and the mystical for the people that we're talking about. This is what I always try to get people to remember. It doesn't matter if you and I believe it, Rook. It matters if they believe it. If they believe in it, that this ritual, the ritual magic is real and it works. And if they do things this way, it's going to help keep them in power or get them more. Yeah, they're
True,
absolutely going to
but
do
the thing
that.
is,
Go ahead.
yeah. But the thing is, it only works when we don't know they're there, or that we don't admit that they're there. If the average person all over this planet knew that they existed, there is such thing as a bloodline cabal that controls everything that's going on and has caused many of the things, probably including Kennedy's death, to take place. If they knew that, it would evaporate overnight, because it can only survive when the majority of people think that that's a bunch of hooey. But they never look at it, because they never look at it. They never will. Well, maybe they will someday, because it's getting more popular to talk about conspiracy, and that's why they've turned the word conspiracy theorist into a swear word, because they're really afraid of people that are saying the things that we're saying. But if enough people believed in it, they would not be able to run this gambit on the world. They just wouldn't.
So I agree to an extent, but also I think that people fundamentally understand. Like, if you ask anybody, in fact, please do this, randomly ask people who killed Kennedy. Like, people are going to be like the government, the CIA, the mafia, a combination of all three. Like, people just know, okay, well, the government whacked a president. That's just the thing we've accepted. If you ask them on the 20th anniversary, Rook, and maybe we can get into this a little bit, we'll go ahead and
9/11. Yeah.
Do that interview or do that portion of it on Rockfin. We'll kill it on YouTube. You guys can join us over on a platform that doesn't censor us for our speech. But I mean, if you ask people now, you know, the official narrative on 9/11, most of them are going to be like, yeah, no, I don't endorse the official narrative on. They might not know what it is. They might think that there are as many or more crazy conspiracies about 9/11, which is true, that, you know, than there are any kind of relevant information about what probably happened. But they know fundamentally the official narrative is wrong. It's that they can't make the connection that it's happening in real time, Rook.
Yes, and here's the problem. You could take them over to the edge of the scary woods, but they're not going to go racing down that dark path at night. They can kind of glean that something went down, but until they can actually put together the facts and show enough interest for themselves, knowing that their own life may be at stake now with what the Illuminati are doing, but at least their own freedoms. If they could look at that, if you could light that path for them and show them it was these people, it was here's the money, here's where it went, and here was the reason it was done. And if you can connect them at least to that, they can get very angry if it's proven to them and they believe it's true. And they can tell other people because now they have names and faces and details. Because a lot of people will go, well, I don't know if that's true because I've heard so many different things. But if they could lock down a concise story, kind of like the movie Zeitgeist, you know, which I agree with most of that, and get it in their head about what went down that day, they could stand up against any future attempts like that, because they're going to know. They're going to say, look, this was obviously another attempt to put something over us, on us, like the Patriot Act was one of the things that they did with that, amongst many other things, to corral us and control us. And I think that the details are important, although it bores most people. But if you are understanding that if you learn this, you'll learn who's pulling your strings, I think a lot of people take value in that.
No, you're right. You're right. So, look, I mean, we've talked on this show. We've talked to Cynthia McKinney. We've talked to Richard Gage, Jason Burmis, Loose Change, good friend. And when it's so weird. Like, I haven't encountered a human being, I don't know, I'm going to say in years, who in real life, who thinks that George W. Bush told us the unmitigated truth about what happened on September 11th, 2001, and who can't connect all of the dots that you just laid out in terms of the cessation of our civil liberties. So here's what happened though in that 20 years that maybe we can get into a little bit, that I find most troubling, and it's probably the most successful the element to the whole psyop, and that is the complete capture of like that anti-war Occupy left, and the flipping of them into jackbooted little authoritarian motherfucking just Stasi ready to go fucking little shitbirds, Rook.
You're right. And but they're using mostly COVID for that. Now the other thing was the whole Trump election, whether or not that was valid, or Trump versus Biden. We can get into that some other time. That's another whole can of worms. But the thing about it is, I do see a transition. Now we're talking an entire generation at 20 years. So we're looking at the newest, like the hippies we knew back then. These are their kids now, and possibly the parents as well, that are now accepting. Here's the 20-year difference that you're noticing, in my opinion. They're believing the media. The liberal left never believed the media before. I mean, not that much.
It's their media.
And now word for word, you know, and they scream science, although they didn't hear any of the science or look at any of the science. But they are just totally hook, line, and sinker. And the biggest problem is COVID, because that's the one where they'll get us. That's one where all freedoms will be taken away and never given back.
No, I agree.
That's what I've noticed.
So much. I mean, dude, the exact same people, Rook, who 10 years ago, 20 years ago, knew that, you know, genetically modified food was probably a bad thing, who knew that antibacterial everything was probably a bad thing, because then you would make your body dependent on antibodies that you had to get over the counter, and you were destroying. They knew that we had natural immunity, Rook, even 3 years ago. These exact people that we're talking about 2 years ago, they knew that your body had an immune system. They knew that it worked, and they knew that you didn't need to go running for a shot every time you got the sniffles or every time the TV told you.
Yeah. Well, that ties right back into what I was talking about, because now they believe the media, and I'm going to discount that number, 600,000 people or whatever. You know, they stopped talking about the number of people that died from it. But
no, people are ready with that 626,000 people
of COVID that die with COVID. Now, I may be exaggerating a little bit, but I believe that comorbidity report. And I do believe that these people would have died of the other thing had they not died of COVID, which I do not believe that they did. And so if you add the 1% or less that actually do die from this disease, the number is closer to like 15,000, maybe 20,000. That's a light flu year. And I do believe that COVID is the flu. I think they took the flu, they combined it with this bat virus. We funded it in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, here in the United States. Fauci and even Biden and Obama made it possible for that research to get over to the Wuhan lab and be funded, even though it was illegal to do so at the time. And we're finding this out. Fauci's been grilled by Congress several times lately.
Well, we made it illegal. This is the funny part. Yeah. We had the lab in Fort Detrick. We were funding the research. We weren't the only, nation funding the research. But then, a member of Congress finds out, makes it illegal. So we pick up the research, move it to Wuhan, fund it additionally for another 3 years. And then COVID gets out and we go, it was a bat from a wet market. That's what did it. We're going to start a incredibly racially charged narrative, just like we did after 9/11. There were a handful of us, Rook, that were drawing these comparisons and calling this out every step of the way. And big shout out to I'm going to miss a bunch of people, but Ryan Christian, Vanessa Beeley, Eva Bartlett, Whitney Webb, Off Guardian in particular, Piers Robinson, the doctor. And by the way, we're going to be having all of these people on the show coming up here. Is mostly why I'm bringing this up. Get to sit down with the editorial staff of the Off Guardian in a couple of weeks, and we haven't done that yet, and I don't know fucking why. It's going to be awesome. But really there were only a handful of people that were making the connection and talking about it consistently. We've all been demonetized for it. We've all suffered tremendously on the YouTubes, which is why we're pretty grateful to what we've been able to do on Rockfin, a couple other different platforms. Rook, I got to go to Sacramento yesterday to an anti-mandate, anti-jab rally. It's the shirt that I'm wearing right now. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. It's pretty clever. I mean, it was racially mixed. It was mixed age groups. Saw a lot of people in scrubs. A lot of people pointed out that the most vaccine hesitant group is PhDs, followed by people that didn't go to college. The people most likely to take this are the partially educated, the specifically educated,
Yes,
college
yes, the
graduate.
college specifically educated. Yes.
It's so weird, and so I don't know. Maybe we did this the last time you were on. But one
What
of
would,
my
oh, the delay.
pardon?
You mean the delay?
No, not the delay. I
Oh, okay.
apologize for the delay. But maybe I don't know if I trotted out this quote or not, but it comes from Leni Riefenstahl, the woman who did Hitler's propaganda films, and she was saying that they worked not because of any like good writing or leadership position, any kind of brilliance from the Nazi upper echelon, but because of the submissive void. And the masses is what she called the submissive void, the people who were just willing to buy it, and because the intelligentsia had rationalized it by making asking questions a form of treason.
Hmm.
And that's what we've done with the
Right.
Rona. Rook, we've made asking questions a treason. And when you've done that successfully, basically like we have here in the West, all you're left with is revolt. And you and I talked about this a little bit before we went live. Maybe it was before we even got onto the thing. I want to come back to it, but I do want to, before any of that happens, kick it over to Rockfin only. So everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, why? You can click the link. You don't need an account to watch on Rockfin. If you want to hang out in the chat, you do need to make an account. The account's free. If you like what we do and you want to support the show, you can do so for $9.99 a month and get all of the paywalled content on the platform, including the episode of Tinfoil Hat Premium I just did with Sam Tripoli. You hear me talk about some shit that like I never normally talk about, or at least in a way that it's presented, although that's probably changing. And everybody else that does paywall content on here, you can see that. It's a great way to support the show. We also have a GoFundMe. I don't have a link for that handy, but it's in the description on the YouTube. That is the primary way by which we get to pay bills and shit. So if you got a couple of bucks, please do throw it at it. If you don't, no big deal, but share the fuck out of the link because that really does make a difference. Link into description and all that good shit. And then, Josh, will you
What am I doing?
taking us off of the YouTubes, and we'll have the rest of the conversation over on Rockfin.